Hello and welcome back to another episode of Unmissed Connections. We're back in the studio of this two-part series with Daniel Gaugler from PFL. Just click around here. We got a link so you can watch the first part, where we talk about what actually defines a successful account-based marketing campaign, how you target those personas, and how you actually build out that entire marketing structure. But now, as we get into this, the next question I'd love to ask is just about the different channels. So, Daniel, how do you actually see the different marketing channels playing a part? Are some more important than others? Are there parts that people should really be focusing on versus others? Or is it just an even scale? You just try to be as equal as possible against the different channels you can engage your prospects with?
I hate to say it, but it really does depend. We as consumers or buyers, whether we're B2B or in our personal lives, we don't think about things in a single channel. We think about our overall experience with a brand, and those different components all add up to our impression and whether we choose to buy or not to buy. And so we have to be where our customers want us to be. And when I said it depends, it's not just by industry, or it really depends on the individual. What we found is it's really about the orchestration, and then also, as I mentioned in the previous webinar, listening and watching what are the behaviors of those folks to optimize your channels.
I think just to add to that too, I definitely agree, and I think it also depends on the type of engagement you're looking to have and the content you're pushing. Not all content and not all engagements work across every channel. Obviously here at TimeTrade, we're really, keen on appointments and having meetings with people, but, a meeting isn't always the right format based on, it may be a simple question. Website chat is really blowing up right now, and there are definitely instances where a customer, based on the type of inquiry engagement they have, that might be a better suited medium for having that type of conversation. But then there's, bigger conversations that aren't well suited to those types of things. So thinking about the different channels based on the content and the engagement makes a big difference.
And now, talking about content, I know, we had a big push, specifically we were talking about it in the last episode about direct mail. I think it'd be great for us to actually talk to the different direct mail campaigns that we ran, because they were a lot of fun. I'm just going to grab them, I'd love to talk to them. So One of the first ones we did, this is a bit awkward to pull out here.
You get it backwards.
Can I pass this over to you?
Yeah.
So what do we got here? We've got our golf mailer. So initially, we had mailed out this and the putter, I believe, to a contact. Or was it just this?
Just this to an individual. So you may think we're crazy to be sending these things through the mail.
Yeah.
But would that help? Daniel's team, we definitely were able to get some good attention. So this was actually, we talked about last time, the modern nurtures are definitely not single-threaded per individual, and this campaign was a cool example of that, because we basically identified two personas at the particular use case we were going after. So it was software companies and the sales team, and in terms of them being able to book appointments. And we saw that when we work with those types of companies, there's really two major stakeholders that are involved in the evaluation. The head of sales, who's kind of driving a lot of the overall priorities for the team. But when it actually gets down to getting deep into the evaluation, it's sales enablement or sales ops. So the idea that we had here was we actually sent two different pieces out. The mat went to the head of sales, and then we had a separate kit that had the balls with it that went to that sales enablement individual. And the messaging around it was really to try and drive a conversation.
Got them all branded and everything.
They're
These
pretty
are
fancy,
beautiful.
right? It wasn't a cheap campaign, but by being really focused in terms of identifying these accounts through ABM, we saw phenomenal results from this campaign.
And then we sent a putter too. Who'd the putter go to?
Yeah, whoever took the meeting with us following the call to action got a nice Callaway putter.
So it turns out, though, I think we have.
I don't think that's actually the.
No, this isn't Callaway. This is one of our testers that we have in here, but we have so many left-handed putters now left over. We don't know what to do with them all. I mean, that's just one example. We did another campaign. We did and this really worked out well with our messaging, with ping pong. I mean, with TimeTrade, the constant back and forth of trying to schedule an appointment, it's like a ridiculous, awful, and exhausting game of ping pong.
Yeah, so this campaign, again, was targeted towards tech companies, but this time we were talking to the customer success teams. So they have the challenge of, having to meet with customers constantly, but also being really readily available to customers, having constant touch points at key points during the customer relationship, and having to schedule those meetings is obviously a big pain trying to go back and forth. So
I'm installing.
Yeah, no. Oh geez, we're gonna turn this into
is awesome.
a ping pong show. But it can turn any table into a ping pong, and if they took the meeting, they got a little something else. So it was a really fun one. We talked about adding fun in there, and I think one of the cool things that our team has done in terms of these campaigns is when we talked about before, thinking about the long term. All of these are items that could kind of leave the TimeTrade brand within their office and create a conversation at these companies about, what is this? Who is TimeTrade? So we were helping to build, hopefully, a longer lasting brand impression with those customers.
And these are great. And Danny, I got to ask you, how much do you see direct mail growing? Year over year, I feel like it's really turning into, again, just something that is really making an impact. It's not about sending a flyer now. It's about sending actual fun things people use.
But particularly in B2B, it's grown in B2C as well. But in B2B, marketers are really looking to adopt the channel in whole new ways. And first, I want to say, Lauren and team, great job on these campaigns. I think one of the other things you did really, really well is you made it fun, but it's also very relevant to your message and your value proposition. And so it wasn't like I got a random ping pong ball set. I have an idea of I get this, and I totally can relate. Yeah. That is a pain point. That is exactly what it feels like. So the value proposition you guys delivered in a fun way didn't get lost, and so good job on that. But yeah, the direct mail categories, it really is taking off, and it's funny how many what you might call digital native companies are adopting it. Companies who you wouldn't think would do direct mail, from large social media companies to large search engine companies who really are finding this engaging offline is just as important as online.
And really the last question I guess I want to ask, and it's more towards to you, Lauren, the success we've seen. Can you talk about what we've seen as opposed for actual meetings set? How many people we've been able to connect with and move them forward through the sales cycle?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about ABM, and maybe Daniel, you can weigh in here too on some of the things that you've seen, is the way you measure the success of ABM goes beyond what the funnel was a few years ago. These particular campaigns, our really goal was to get some account activation and drive new opportunities from our sales team. Yeah. So we were really pushing people to take that initial meeting with us and learn about TimeTrade where they maybe hadn't before. What we saw over these, we usually see an average across our direct mail, that piece as the kind of tipping point in the nurture campaign, about a 25% conversion rate from sent pieces to sales opportunity.
That's nuts. You don't see 25%. Those are metrics you'd see in the 90s with email.
You guys do a great job with these programs and campaigns. And I think the other, you mentioned this, we have short-term goals, but we sometimes lose track of that long-term objective. And that's one of the big benefits we see in our own ABM programs. And it really can be a gift that keeps on giving. And I've had numerous contacts where you're like, I got this campaign. I was like, whoa, we haven't had that campaign in a long time. It reminds me that maybe we should circle back. Maybe that program was more successful than I thought it was, because it was about building the relationship.
Daniel, before we wrap this up, I just want to ask you, what has been some awesome or great or unique, direct mailers that you guys have seen some of your customers do?
One that stands out is Proofpoint did a campaign with us where they're marketing to the head of an IT team or maybe a CISO, and it was I'm a big deal kit, and it included everything to put on your desk to make sure everybody knew you're a big deal, including a nameplate that said I'm a big deal.
That's not bad.
I love that. I want one.
Right. And my favorite part is they had to order more kits because they had other people who they marketed to asking if they could get their own. It's apparently you can't have just one big deal in a company.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic that concept is hilarious.
Mm-hmm. But, way to get people really talking about your brand in a fun way.
That really does sum us up. Before we go, again, we want you to check out the webinar that we did with Serious Decisions, both Daniel and Lauren talking about, and again, I'm going to ruin it, but building a modern nurture stream. It was a fantastic webinar, and it's right below in the comment section here, or the description for you to click through and watch the webinar on demand. Daniel, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you jumping in. This was a fantastic episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll catch you guys later.